Welcome back to War Thunder and welcome aboard the AMX-30B2 BRENUS, or in French BRENUS, I hope I pronounced that right. And I want to talk about the tank. Now, let me just get some things out of the way to, get then after that into the commentary. First of all, I will present you two ace gameplays, one with 5, one with 6 kills. And I want you to pay attention to how I play it, where I am on the minimap, which opponents I fight. And I also want you to know that I'm fully upgraded. This tank was given to me by Gaijin by request to, show it off. Fully upgraded for a 30 days test drive. So thank you to Gaijin for that. And then, well, I have to talk about the tank, don't I? So let's begin with it. Now, in the triangle of a tank, it is firepower, armor, and mobility. And every aspect has numerous other aspects that make the aspect itself usable in the matter of War Thunder. And the AMX-30B2 BRENUS, by looking at all the single stats, is not bad, but it becomes very, very easily apparent that it's not that good either. But then in the reality of War Thunder, it's actually very enjoyable. Unenjoyable, I have to say. It's very unenjoyable to drive. Now, this French medium tank, or main battle tank, sits at a battle rating of 8.7, where it is equivalent, according to the battle rating, to the Leopard 2K. But the Leopard 2K will slice through this tank like no tomorrow. And you have a damn hard time not dealing with the Leopard in a head-on engagement, but actually making your impact on the battlefield compared to a Leopard 2K, because of numerous aspects. And I think it's just so amazing how great the distance is that it would take several videos to fully explain it. But in short, the biggest drawback of this tank at 8.7 is the lack of a stabilizer. And it kind of reminds me about the AMX-13 story. So we basically have the same chassis and the same turret and the same gun, and to the stock ammunition, the same ammunition as the AMX-13 1972 at battle rating 7.3. And already at this battle rating, the tank has some issues, and this tank does not really compensate for it, except for one of the upgraded ammunitions. So let's talk about the mobility of the tank, and it's actually not that disastrously bad. We have a top speed of 65 kilometers an hour, we have 38.2 tons and 750 horsepower for it, so we are, just short of 20 horsepower per tons. We're close to it, but not really breaching it. The reverse gear is good, we have neutral steering, the tank has some reasonable ground pressure, but there is one extremely annoying bug, and that is the gear shift bug. So whenever you are on a slope and you want to go over 50 kilometers an hour, the tank driver is constantly shifting between 6th and 5th gear. And this is with a fully upgraded expert crew. Not an ace crew, but an expert crew. So what the normal average player can actually realistically reach from the beginning without spending money. And that is not particularly bad, but it is just working in a down tier really well, so that you can effectively flank. Because in the usual up tier that you face to 9.3, you know, there are tanks that are faster than you, have armor that you cannot really penetrate realistically, and they have stabilizer. You don't have a stabilizer, so that's the mobility. It's okay, but not good enough. Then let's talk about the armor. And this is the actual upgrade compared to the AMX-30B2, I guess, that it has an era package. And that is quite something, to be honest. But is it worth it? No. First of all, era is always a thing, you know. It doesn't guarantee you non-penetration. And it's a one-trick pony. So after the first hit, at that part of the armor, the era is gone. Explosive reactive armor. After that, it's gone. And you cannot get it back in that battle, even when you drive into a cap circle. So it doesn't work like refilling a crew member or ammunition or something like this. Once used, it's gone. And then there are big gaps on the tank from the front, even lower glacis, driver's hatch, and simple the surrounding of the cannon. So you have equal chance to hit era as you have equal chance to not hit era from the front when shooting randomly at the tank. So that is the protection. The rest of the tank is practically, in a nutshell, like a Leopard. So it's not really relying on any sort of armor. And the era protection has also its limits. So the SS11 ATGM, then also the other ATGMs with higher than 650 millimeters will punch through no problem. The ITO on the Begleitpanzer will punch right through. The stock Heat FS on the Leopard will punch right through at any distance. And don't try to angle, because then he just simply shoots your side and penetrates you there. And then let's talk about the firepower. Now we have as a stock shell the heat shell with 400 millimeters of penetration. So this patch, the OCC 105F1 was buffed by 10% up to 400 millimeters, and that is nice in terms of penetration. But again, the post penetration is not really there. It's not really satisfying, although more useful than before. Then we have also a stock HE shell, which is useless, smoke shell as a tier 1 upgrade, and as a tier 2 upgrade, the OFL 105F1 AP FSDS round with 348 millimeters of penetration. Sorry about this. That is the shell to use. Now, the stock grind is better than the actual playing experience of the premium AMX-30, because you have a coaxial mounted 20mm, which you can deal with SPAs, with planes to a certain degree. You can mow down walls and so forth. So again, it's the same old story as I have talked about numerously and excessively in all the other 3 videos that I made about the AMX-30, AMX-30 1972 and AMX-30B2. So you know where I'm going with this, right? Right. But then there is the rate of fire of the gun. You see, the Leopard 2K with a 120mm gun has, with its ready rack, 5 seconds for an ace crew, 5-second reload. And it will kill, or it will penetrate everything realistically at its battle rating, and hasn't the most difficult time even on up tier. And then, well, you have a reload of 6.7 seconds. While that by itself is not bad, very often I just cannot reload in time, because all or the majority of tanks that I face have stabilizer, have equal or higher rate of fire, and have to a certain degree also trollish armor, or I cannot disable them because it just takes too long for me to stop and to make the shot count. And this is where the playstyle comes in. And to a certain degree, in theory, I have to agree with people that say in the comment section, well, you have to play it passively, you have to play it as a backup vehicle, you have to lay ambushes, you have to flank, and, you know, just stay out of line of sight of the enemy. But that is the problem with the stabilizer. See, This tank here that I disabled has a stabilizer and he didn't pay attention. I was driving here in the woods on Kursk. I know that if somebody is coming, it's most likely that he's going directly for the cap, and he didn't point the gun into my direction, and the first shot was a disabling shot. And so the follow-up shot made sure that I could kill him with the AP FSDS. Maybe even with the heat shell against this tank and so forth. But this is the perfect down tier battle, like the previous one. And yet you have to flank, you have to ambush the enemy, you have to play just simply much better than the enemy to overcome the drawbacks of the tank. And that is just simply annoying. Because what is there to do in a city fight? What is if I have to push to secure a capture zone? What is if somebody pushes me and I have to retreat and I must repair and so forth? And then just as I'm finished, he comes around the corner and I can ambush him, but I have to stop and aim again to make the good hit with the AP FSDS or the heat shell. And so the reality on the battlefield is that you just simply get ruffle stumped, especially at your battle rating or higher, where the most matches that you will have will occur. Enemies are faster or equal fast at you, have much better protection, especially against your stock shell, and even your upgraded AP FSDS shell will not guarantee you a penetration, for example against a Challenger or a hell even a Chieftain or a T64 of both variants. You are not a Leopard 2K, you're not an M1 Abrams, you're so much slower. And yes, there are shots like these where you have all the time in the world to think, to readjust your aim, and to one-shot even something like a mouse, because you hit the ammunition, you know, which is a big ammo rack on a big tank that's moving very slowly, and you have a very powerful shell against a late World War II tank. And this is just simply the perfect example of compression. This tank is really not that great, especially stock, when you have enemies at your or even higher battle rating, which is the majority of cases. But in a down tier, you have a very powerful gun, fully upgraded, especially against enemies that you can outplay because they are playing by the same rules as you. Leopard 1 doesn't have a stabilizer and so forth. And especially it becomes so painful when a lot of the engagements I just would gladly trade for a British 6.7 tank with a 20 pounder with a stabilizer that has equal or even faster reload and a solid shot stock, and you know that can deal the damage and does more spalling damage. Very often I came into this situation, and while I have here an ace, you know, and I get my 6th shot soon, and I greatly helped my team here and just took out some players effectively out of the match and then go into the capture zone. You know, this is the exception. This is where the stars align itself. I don't really feel like this was my skill. I could have done many of those kills with, for example, a T44 or a Leopard. The battle rating for this tank to a big degree is not justified. It's over-tiered and it's not fun, and I cannot recommend you to play this tank. However, there is a difference to, for example, the Maga 3 or the AMX-30, the premium variant, because you pay a lot of money for these tanks. This is a free-to-play tank. Everybody can get it. Everybody can work with it stock. It's not insurable, but eventually you will get the tier 2 upgrade. It's not a tier 4 upgrade, so that's doable, I guess. There are some redeeming factors, of course, about the tank. For example, the smoke launcher. You can see there is a whole battery of smoke launchers, and in total you have 28 smoke shells in the smoke launchers, and per tap on the key you release 4 or you launch 4 smoke shells, and they give you a big smoke stream. So in total you have 7 smoke shells. That is quite a lot. I mean, yeah, there are other tanks that have probably more, like the Tiger 2 with the single smoke launcher and so forth. But again, this is a wide smoke screen, not just a single blob. and you just have to refill 4 of them to have another, yeah, smoke launch, so to speak. Other than that, you also have smoke shells for your gun, where you can smoke up enemy positions, but the overwhelming majority of tanks that you will face have this as well. Against aircraft though, the tank is not that well suited, despite the coaxial 20mm machine gun, as you could see here. Instant ammo rack by a Heinkel 219A7. So that is the AMX-30B2 BRENUS. It's not a particularly bad tank, it just doesn't fit the meta, the required playstyle. You cannot really carry the match. You have to be very passively and so forth, and there are already too many tanks previous to that have to do. So the French suffer at this as good as they are at 7.7, as bad as they are at higher tiers. That's it for me today, so thanks for watching, thanks for listening, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give it a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other on the battlefields of War Thunder.